right now at 7.
There is a big problem with bottles and cans. Grocery stores are supposed to pay you for them, but they refuse. So why? The answer is coming up in our original Undercover report.
Plus, concerns in San Jose about a cancer-causing contaminant in drinking water. Neighbors want to know why it took months for them to find out.
You really can't express what it means to see an innocent man walk out of prison.
A cold case makes history in California. How DNA helped exonerate a man convicted of a murder more than 30 years ago. And right now on the KPIX 5 News at 7, streaming on CBS and Bay Area, retailers giving a state law the runaround with bottles and cans. Good evening, I'm Ken Bastida.
And I'm Elizabeth Cook. With recycling centers shuttered around the state, retailers are supposed to pick up the slack, but the reality is far from it.
In tonight's original report, KPIX 5's Andrea Nakano went undercover to find stores blatantly skirting state law.
Hi, I've come to recycle.
Recycle?
Most employees don't know about it, and neither do many consumers. If you paid a deposit for bottles and cans, you are supposed to be able to get your money back. It's part of California's 33-year-old bottle bill, but don't expect smooth sailing.
Bottles and cans?
We don't do it.
Greg Wright found out the hard way when the recycling kiosk in the parking lot of his neighborhood grocery store closed last August. He's a longtime bottle and can redeemer.
I don't need the money, but I don't want to give it to the sanitary department.
So he called Sacramento
And said, hey, what's going on? How come I have to drive an hour to recycle a can or a bottle? And they got back to me and said, well, you don't.
Cal Recycle, the agency that oversees recycling in the state, told him he could redeem his cans right there at his Lucky supermarket. But when he went in,
No one in the store knew anything. We don't do that. That was the answer I got.
turns out retailers became the mandated recyclers of last resort last year when 300 Replanet Recycle kiosks in supermarket parking lots like this one were shut down across the state. If there is nowhere to recycle within a half-mile radius of a retailer known as a convenience zone, then that retailer has to take back your bottles and cans and give you your money back, unless it pays the state a $100 a day fee to opt out. In the Bay Area, hundreds of stores are on the state-mandated recycler list, from supermarkets to pharmacies and gas stations. But our undercover investigation found many are not following the rules. We randomly picked 20 stores in 5 Bay Area counties. Our first stop, the Walmart in Pleasanton, where a manager told us,
Oh, we don't do recycling.
Oh, no, but you do, because there's a sign that says to go to the Replanet, but they're closed. They've been closed for months.
Yeah, we don't do it.
Same response at another Walmart across the bay in Mountain View.
Recycle?
Yeah.
No.
At this 7-Eleven in Santa Clara, the clerk just ignored us.
Have some cans?
Even though the sign on his front door clearly says his store is required to redeem all CRV. At another 7-Eleven in Pleasant Hill, the clerk was more apologetic.
For recycling?
I have no idea how to do that.
He pointed us across the street to this Safeway store where we had no better luck.
We don't have a recycling for this stuff here.
CVS Pharmacy in San Bruno did redeem, maybe because last December Cal Recycle slapped them with a $3.6 million fine for not doing it.
All right. Thank you so much.
But the biggest surprise of all came at this Walgreens in Sunnyvale, where the store manager took our bottles, then threw us a zinger.
What do you guys do with them?
It goes in the dumpster.
Come on, are you serious?
I wish I wasn't, but I don't have any way of returning them to anybody.
In all, 9 out of 20 retailers we visited refused to redeem our bottles and cans, even though the state requires them to do so.
It's a total loss.
William Marr is not surprised. He's a longtime employee at CalMart, a neighborhood supermarket in San Francisco.
It's a loss in terms of cash, money, and it's a loss also in terms of storing the garbage outside.
He told us CalMart has chosen to redeem bottles and cans because as a small supermarket, it can't afford to pay the $100 a day fine.
I have 10 cans.
But it's work intensive, and he doesn't believe it's doing anyone any good anyhow.
I think the system itself has failed the people of the state of California. It's nothing more than a tax.
In a statement, the California Grocers Association told us grocers are trying to do our best in a situation that was not designed for retailers of food to also become can and bottle recyclers. As for Greg Wright, after complaining for months, he's now able to redeem bottles and cans at his lucky store.
The bottom line for me is if you charge me a nickel for a can and the regulation says that you can go get your nickel back, then I want my nickel back.
You may be wondering what retailers do with these redeemed bottles and cans. As you saw in our story, one store just throws them in the trash. Another told us they pay for extra curbside recycling. Technically, that is a violation as well. The state says they are supposed to take them to a certified recycling center. Our take? That is just a lot to ask. We've posted responses from specific stores mentioned in our story on KPIX5.com.
Concerns about contaminated wells in San Jose. Tonight, some neighbors want to know why it took them 3 months to find out. Residents in the Willow Glen neighborhood got letters in the mail in late January from the San Jose Water Company. The letters said several wells tested positive for elevated levels of a type of cancer-causing sulfonic acid. The water company says it took immediate action in October to shut off those wells, but customers still have questions.
I think there's a trust issue now, and so what they need to do is not just correct their information, and they need to be pretty proactive about it, because right now I think people are wondering what we don't know.
Even if it's a question mark, you would like to at least know so you can take precautions, so nobody likes to feel like they're notified last.
The water company is acknowledging a lag in the notification. The source of the contamination is still a mystery.
Tonight, we're getting our first look at some body cam video from a police shooting at a San Jose gas station last month. Now, the suspect was allegedly trying to ignite the gas pump. You see the officers repeatedly trying to get the man to step away and surrender.
Shots fired.
Now, the confrontation happened on January 4th at a narco station in East San Jose. Officers say they first tried non-lethal force, but then opened fire on the suspect when he charged at 2 of the officers with a metal rod. 32-year-old Jose Antonio de los Santos survived and now faces several charges. Well, a remarkable moment of justice in El Dorado County. For the first time in state history, DNA evidence has exonerated someone wrongly convicted of murder while also identifying the actual suspect. Reporter Marissa Perlman was there as Ricky Davis walked out a free man after 15 years behind bars.
Free man. Ricky Davis surrounded by cameras, clearly overwhelmed by all of the attention.
No comment, you guys. Thank you.
The 55-year-old finally reunited with family for the first time in 15 years.
Ricky! Hi, guys. Hi.
And the team from the Northern California Innocence Project that helped make him a free man. Davis walking far away from the El Dorado County Jail, his first trip, grabbing pizza and fresh clothes. Davis was handed a 16-year-to-life sentence for second-degree murder, a murder we now know he did not commit, spending years in jail for the fatal stabbing of Jane Hilton, who he lived with in El Dorado Hills, but always maintaining his innocence.
He said to me, "Vern, I didn't do it." And I said, "Ricky, I have to tell you with all sincerity, I believe you."
But in April of last year, with help from the Northern California Innocence Project, newly tested evidence pointed to another man's DNA on the victim's nightgown and under her fingernails.
The gentleman who was the source of this DNA profile was still alive, and we could compare the DNA to it.
The DNA linked to one of 3 teen boys the victim's daughter was spending time with at a park the night the murder happened.
The genealogy in this case has been a gift.
Melissa O'Connell with the Innocence Project has been working on Davis's case for years.
I think the only thing is seeing it on your face. You know, you really can't express what it means to see an innocent man walk out of prison and go on with his life from here.
Now, that one's Marissa Perlman reporting. We are told that Davis will be entitled to compensation through the state of California, $51,000 for every year that he spent behind bars.
Coming up, courtroom drama in the Bart stabbing case.
Yeah, the confrontation that got the defendant thrown out of his own trial again, and why the victim's family and friends insist this is all just an act.
Plus, the Bart police chief says a new crime-fighting strategy is paying off, but are riders buying it?
Plus, Attorney General Barr taking a swipe at President Trump and his tweets.
To have public statements and tweets made about the department make it impossible for me to do my job.
And a car goes flying. The crazy crash in a traffic circle and the surprising reaction from the driver.
It's been a bit of a roller coaster weather-wise, temperature-wise. Some places were 20 degrees cooler today than we were just 2 days ago. And all of a sudden, it looked like summer with those low-grade clouds coming in. We're going to talk to you about what comes next with all of this coming up.
The man accused of stabbing Nia Wilson to death on a BART platform was thrown out of his trial again. Today, suspect John Lee Cowell yelled a bunch of profanities at the prosecutor before he was eventually hauled out of the courtroom. The defense team put Cowell on the stand to show jurors his mental state, but Wilson's family and friends believe he's just putting on a performance, almost worthy of an Oscar.
It's a show. It's an act. He's very smart. He's using big words.
I believe he's been coached. It's just an act to me. He's showing signs of manipulation.
Well, meantime, BART's new police chief says new tactics to crack down on crime are working.
Crime dropped 18% system-wide when you compare last month to January of 2018. Cell phone thefts showed a big drop, 46 last month versus 74 for the same time in 2018. The chief says the increased presence by BART police is actually paying off.
The partnerships and collaborations that we've established have been instrumental as we look for ways to reduce these issues in our system. Our outreach teams connect people in crisis with long-term services.
Chief Alvarez went on to say that Alameda, San Mateo, and Santa Clara counties are expected to join others in providing dedicated homeless outreach teams this year. Meanwhile, we asked passengers if they're actually noticing a difference.
I definitely would like to see some security. I don't know that I've seen any. You know, I'm certainly not in uniform. But
the chief spoke about dedicating officers to high crime stations in the future, as well as his plan to fully staff the department over the next 5 years.
Well, no doubt you noticed the change out there today. It was gray and it was much cooler than we'd been over the last few days. And if you just look at where we ended up for daytime highs, 61 for Concord was the high. Look at the drop in Santa Rosa, 56 degrees. That was it. Might I remind you, it was 80 degrees in Santa Rosa just 2 days ago. So a big change. And if you look at the 24-hour difference now, while it's not as dramatic as where we were for the daytime high yesterday, you can still see Napa 7 degrees cooler right now than we were. It's 6 degrees cooler right now in Santa Rosa than we were just yesterday at this time. San Jose, it's 4 degrees cooler. Here's one of the reasons why we did it. You can see the futurecast is picking up on all those low-grade clouds that have gotten much of the coast covered today. And as we get into tomorrow morning, they're coming back. So Friday morning, we're going to wake up to gray skies. And it'll be kind of like the summer gray, where it's the low marine layer type clouds that come in and fill in the bay first. Some of these will work their way inland, perhaps. But tomorrow is different than today, because those clouds are not going to last nearly as long as they did today. There's going to be a subtle little return to an offshore flow that'll clear them out of here by the afternoon, and we will actually get more blue sky, Bay Area wide tomorrow. It's not going to be gray all day like it was today. And as a result, the numbers are going up. These are about 4 to 7 degrees warmer for tomorrow than we were today. So that means mid to upper 60s for much of the South Bay. We'll see mid 60s here in the East Bay. And if you look closely, watch what happens the closer we get to the opening of the Golden Gate. You see those numbers are only in the upper 50s. Berkeley, Mill Valley, Sausalito, Alameda, and of course San Francisco and Daly City will stay in the upper 50s because we're still feeling that kind of influence of an onshore flow. But everybody else stays in the mid 60s all the way up into Lake and Mendocino County. Well, that covers the temperatures. If you're wondering about rain, This is not a good story. If we take a look out in the Pacific, there's our next system way out there. We missed out on one last night that fell apart. This one's going to try a little harder to get here with rain. Look, there's a fire hose pointed right at the far northwest coast by the time we get into Sunday morning, but that falls apart. And if you look at where it's actually going to rain, where you can measure it, you've got to get from Mendocino County northward. That takes us through Monday. I'm going to show you the long-range forecast on this now. So we're looking at accumulated rainfall out for the next week and a half. And that says Saturday, not this coming Saturday, next Saturday, February 22nd. Anywhere with color on it's going to get rain between now and then. Anywhere in the white does not get rained on. And we're kind of on our own there for the Southwest, including California. So goes without saying at this point, no rain in the next 7 days. And the daytime highs will pretty much stay right about where they were today, maybe up or down a little, but none of the big spikes like we were doing 2 days ago when we were breaking records. All right, guys, back over to you.
Thank you, Darren. Well, here's what you missed if you're just getting home right now. Attorney General William Barr is pushing back and taking aim at President Trump's tweets after a spat with the Justice Department leaders over how long former Trump campaign advisor Roger Stone should go to prison. Barr spoke out in an interview with CBS News.
I'm not going to be bullied or influenced by anybody, whether it's Congress, newspaper, editorial boards, or the president. I'm going to do what I think is right.
Meantime, the president continues to tweet about the case, slamming one of the trial jurors and tweeting, quote, "This is not looking good for the Justice Department."
To have public statements and tweets made about the department, about cases pending in the department, and about judges before whom we have cases make it impossible for me to do my job.
The Senate has now voted to limit any military action against Iran. The War Powers Resolution requires the president to remove U.S. armed forces within 30 days unless approved by Congress. 8 Republicans crossed party lines to vote for it. So far, there is not enough support to override a likely veto by President Trump. Now to the very latest on the coronavirus outbreak. There are now 15 confirmed cases here in the U.S. after an evacuee at a Texas Air Force base tested positive. Globally, more than 1,300 people have died, and there are nearly 60,000 confirmed cases. And a massive iceberg has broken off the edge of Antarctica. Satellite images from the European Space Agency show an iceberg bigger than the city of Seattle, split from the Pine Island Glacier. Ken?
All right, thanks, Elizabeth. Coming up next, a BMW goes airborne, sending a boulder flying. What led up to this wild chain of events, all caught on camera. And a hoarding horror for one Bay Area neighborhood. A months-long battle leads to a shocking discovery.
Brace yourself. This crash caught on camera is intense. Whoa, check that out. Car going about 100 miles an hour crashes into a roundabout in Long Beach early this morning, sending it just flying through the air, catapulting that car and slamming into another car about 50 feet away. And that's not all. The impact sent a decorative boulder whizzing through the air, which bounced off another nearby car. Witnesses say the driver just got out of the car like, well, nothing happened. The woman was arrested on suspicion of a DUI. Luckily, no reports of any serious injuries.
Well, it's definitely not what you want to see on your neighborhood block. Trash, vermin, syringes, criminal activity.
Well, that's not even the worst of it. A hoarding case in Fairfield went on for months before officers could do anything about it. This is just a taste of what police found on Tuesday. They hauled away 8,000 pounds of trash from the home on Atlantic Avenue. Neighbors say the complaint started back in June. Now police are stuck with the bill for the cleanup, which could be in the thousands of dollars, all because a homeowner refused to comply with multiple requests to follow city rules and clean up. And coming up, a very creative way to stop a crook.
One shopper's perfectly executed cart push that stops a suspect in his tracks.
Some quick thinking and some very slick moves turned one Georgia shopper into a crime-stopping hero. Surveillance video shows a suspected shoplifter running out of a store. Then a customer pushes his cart right in front of him, stops him. Well, thank you for watching tonight at 7. We'll see you at 11.